Okay. All right, I will say good morning. Good morning. We are at a beautiful, wonderful, uplifting Shabbos, and let us begin. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. Sure to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Adar, Stephen Terizin, for dedicating all of his Shumer Drushos this month in memory of Dr. Harry Kansi Hirsch Ben Yosef HaKohen. To thank Paul and Kathy Pollack for dedicating all the Shumer Drushos this month in memory of Paul's grandparents, Zechariah Ben Zechariah and Dina Bas Pesach. To thank our Week of Learning sponsors, Avi and Vivian Zeisman, in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Avi's father, Michael Zeisman, Michal Ben Echiel, Zichron Levracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the Neshamos will have an aliyah, and the families ein lechama. Also, with that, let us begin. We have an incredible daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Mem Ches 48. But let's actually pick up on Mem Zayin Beis 47b, and let's pick up 2, 4, 6, 8 lines up from the bottom, which is really where the sugya that we're going to be focusing on today starts. The Gemara says, "Menahani mili." So as I remember again, excuse me, the topic at hand is the ability for both a Nazir as well as a Kohen Hedyot, Kohen Gadol, to become Tamei for a Meis Mitzvah. Definition of a Meis Mitzvah, someone who passes away and has no one else to tend to their burial needs. Our Mishnah was discussing a more dramatic case where there's a choice between who is going to become Tamei. Is it going to be the Kohen Gadol or is it going to be the Nazir? So that's how we got into this discussion. Now the Gemara kind of backs up a little bit and says, one second, from where do we know this concept that there is the ability for both the Nazir and the Kohen to become Tamei for a Meis Mitzvah? So here we go. Says the Gemara, the Tan Rabbanon, Pasuk says, Al kol nafshos meis lo yavo. So I will say this Pasuk is by the Kohen Gadol. The Pasuk says, literally again, Al kol nafshos meis. For any dead person, he may not come into contact. So what is the Pasuk talking about? So if we're talking about unrelated individuals, right? Rechokim means people who are unrelated to the Kohen Gadol. So Kavachomer, then Rabbi say it's a Kavachomer, it's the Kavachomer. Uma Kohen Hedyot, Shumatami Lekrovim, Enumatami Lerechokim, a regular Kohen who has the license, because the Torah spells out the license for the Kohen Hedyot to become Tamei for immediate relatives, mother, brother, son, daughter, sister, spouse. Kohen Gadol, and yet again, I'm sorry. So Kohen Hedyot, who has the ability to be matami for krovim, doesn't have the ability to be matami for rechokim. Kohen Gadol shein matami lekrovim, ein odin shein matami lerechokim. We'll say Kohen Gadol doesn't even have a license to become tamei for his immediate relatives. So if a Kohen Gadol who cannot become Tamei for immediate relatives, certainly cannot become Tamei for non-relatives, for a Chokim. So therefore I will say when the Pasuk says, Akol nafshos meis lo yavo. So the Torah is telling me that a Kohen Gadol cannot become Tamei. Who is it talking about? Ella bekrov makasa medaber. Rather I will say the Pasuk must be talking about what? Even for his own relatives. When the Pasuk says Akol nafshos meis lo yavo, it's literally talking about his relatives. I will say, just so you appreciate the Pasuk in its totality, the Pasuk is Va'akol nafshos meis lo yavo. So right, so the Kohen Gadol shall not become Tamei for anyone. Then it says La'aviv u'li'imo lo yitama. For his father and his mother, he should not become Tamei. So I will say, so now you understand already the predicament we're going to be in. Why? Because it seems now the pasuk is going to be redundant. Because if we're darshaning, Akol nafshos meis lo yavo means that a Kohen Gadol cannot become Tamei even for his relatives, then we have a problem. What's our problem? What's the meaning of the second phrase, li'imo lo aviv u'li'imo lo yitama? So now we're going to go through this. So the Gemara says, El b'kram b'gaz medaber, I u'lo aviv hu de'eno metamei, ha-metamei hu le'meis mitzvah. Shabbos is incredible. So the Gemara says, what do you do with the word la'aviv? La'aviv means comes to reinforce this point. La'aviv is tafka for his father, that he cannot become tamei, but ultimately, again, who can he become tamei for? A meis mitzvah. So it says here the drasha. So the first part, Al kol nafshos meis lo yavo, is teaching me that a Kohen Gadol cannot become tamei for anyone, even his own immediate relatives. La'aviv. Dafka, it's for his relatives that he can't become tamei for, but he can become tamei for a mitzvah. Top of memchas, uli imo. What do I do with the word uli imo? Right? What do I do with that? 48a. First word li imo. So I said, this is incredible. L'gzeir shava l'chid Rebbe. Li imo ultimately again comes to teach us the gzeir shava according to Rebbe. What's the gzeir shava? Watch this. Tisani in the Braisa. Rabbi Omer, Gaber Nazir, Bimosam Enomatame, Avamatame Hulinigam Ulazivasam. Rabbi said this is very interesting. So watch this Gzir Shava of Rabbi. So first of all, here we're just going to switch gears for just a moment. The pasuk says Bimosam. Pasuk in its entirety is V'al kol nafshos meis lo yavo lo aviv uli imo lo yitama. No, sorry, wrong pasuk. Lula aviv uli imo lo achiv lo achoso lo yitama lahem. This is by Nazir. His father, his mother, his brother, his sister should not become tamei bimosam in their death. Kinezer elokav arosho. Literally again, because the Nazir are literally the crown of God is upon his head. So we'll say, so the idea over here is this is by Nazir. So the Torah tells us bimosam. He's not allowed to become tamei to his relatives when they are dead. What do we darshan from this? Avametamehu lenigam ulazivasam. But a Nazir is permitted to come in contact with his relatives who are tamei, either because of tsaras or because of zav. In other words, the prohibition for a Nazir is not to come in contact with death, with tumas meis, even of his own relatives. But he is permitted to come in contact with other forms of tumah from his relatives. What are examples of other forms of tumah from his relatives? Saras or zivos. So if his mother, father, son, daughter, sister, spouse are ultimately again either mitzoraim or zovim, the Nazir is permitted to come in contact with them. So the Gemara says, "Ve'en li ela b'Nazir." Now I only know that this is true in a Nazir. So I'll say the point that's being made over here is dafka tumas meis, that a Nazir is not permitted to become exposed to. But other forms of tumah, if his relatives contract other forms of tumah, it does not require him to stay away from his relatives. Now I only know that this is true with Nazir. By Kohen Gadol minayin. What about Kohen Gadol? Where do I know this by Kohen Gadol? So the Gemara says as follows. Amrit, watch this. Lo yomar imo be Kohen Gadol. The truth is, the Torah did not need to add the word imo by Kohen Gadol. Also remember again, just to point out, that's the previous pasuk that we were talking about over here. V'akol nafshos meis lo yavo lo aviv uli imo lo yitama. So remember again, also getting back to that pasuk. What do I learn from that pasuk? Akol nafshos meis. What does that teach me? Kohen Gadol can't even become tamei for his own relatives. Lo aviv. What does that teach me? For his relatives he can't, but for a meis mitzvah he can. Imo is kind of out there. Imo is kind of out there. So the Gemara says the truth is, Amrit, lo yomar imo b'kohen gadol shein tamud lomar. The truth is you don't really need the word imo by the mother, by kohen gadol. I don't really need it. Why? Shrei kavachomer, because it's a kavachomer. So what's the kavachomer? Uma im b'makom shekohen hedyot mitame la'achiv me'aviv. So we'll say in a case where a kohen hedyot, now remember, regular kohen is permitted to become tamei for his brother. Rabbi will say, but what type of brother? Only a paternal brother, right? Only a brother from his father. So ma makom shekohen gadol shekohen hedyot mitame la'achiv me'aviv ein kohen gadol mitame la'aviv. So also now watch this. In a situation where a kohen hedyot could become tamei for a paternal brother, a kohen gadol could not even become. In other words, let me say it differently. In a situation where a kohen hedyot could become tamei for his brother from the same father, in that case, a kohen gadol could not even become tamei for who? For the father himself. Forget about the brother. For the father himself, a kohen gadol can't become tamei. So makom she'ein kohen hedyot mitame la'achiv me'imo. In a case, therefore, again, in a case where a kohen hedyot cannot become tamei for his brother from his mother, Einodin she'ein kohen gadol mitame li'imo. Certainly, again, a kohen gadol cannot become tamei even for what? Even for his mother himself. So the Gemara says, Im zachisa me'adin ma tamud lomar imo b'kohen gadol. Say, essentially what the Gemara is suggesting over here is, you could learn out the prohibition of a kohen gadol to become tummy to his mother from a kal v'chomer. So if that's the case, then I don't need the pasuk. And I will say the truth is, it's a double kasha. Why is it a double kasha? Because the truth is, you can learn out the kohen gadol's inability to become tummy to his mother from where? From the beginning of the pasuk. V'akol nafshos meis lo yavo. Okay. In addition to that, you also have a kal v'chomer. So I have a pasuk, I have a kal v'chomer, which then begs the question: why do I need the word uli imo by kohen gadol? To which the Gemara says, Ma tamalomar imo by kohen gadol. Mufna, watch this. Mufna lahakish veladon mimenu gezira shava. The truth is, the word imo is mufna. Mufna means it's open. So it could be used for an alternative drasha. Or in this case, a gezira shava. What's the gezira shava? Ne'emar imo ben Nazir. It says imo by Nazir. The ne'emar imo by kohen gadol. It says imo by kohen gadol. Ma imo ha'amar ben Nazir. B'mosam eino metame. So we'll say, just like imo by Nazir teaches me that what? It's only tumas meis that a Nazir cannot allow himself to be exposed to. But what? But if his relatives are tamei with other forms of tumah, like tsaras or like zivus, that the Nazir is permitted to be exposed to those relatives. Af imo ha'omer b'kohen gadol b'mosam eino metame ava metame linigam. So to Rabbi say the Gzera Shav of Imo teaches us that the same halacha applies by Kohen Gadol, namely that although a Kohen Gadol is not permitted to become exposed to Tumas Meis, even from the closest of relatives, he is permitted to be exposed to the other forms of Tumah of his relatives, namely Tsaras and Zivos. So Rabbi say this is the Gzera Shava of Rebbe Imo from Nazir to Kohen Gadol. Therefore, I will say, if we go back to the pasuk of Kohen Gadol for just a moment, we now have the entire pasuk darshaned, right? L'val kol nafshos meis lo yavo. What does that teach me by Kohen Gadol? What does that teach me? That the Kohen Gadol is not permitted to become tamei, even for who? Even for immediate relatives. Lo aviv, for relatives he can't become tamei, but who can he become tamei for? Meis mitzvah. And Li'imo is a Gzera Shava to Nazir. That just like by Nazir, the drasha by Nazir, Imo teaches us that it's Dafka Tumas Meis, that a Nazir cannot become exposed to. But he is allowed to expose himself, to become exposed to other forms of Tumah of his relatives. For example, Sara'as and Zivus, so to a Kohen Gadol. Cannot become exposed to Tumas Meis, but can allow himself to become exposed to other forms of Tumah from his relatives. And I will say, what this is saying is very important, because let's say the Kohen Gadol has an immediate relative who is a Zav, or who is a Metzora, and let's say that relative needs the Kohen Gadol for assistance. Salocha l'maisa, there would be a heter technically. Again, there are other Isurim involved as well, but there could be a heter technically to allow himself to be exposed to those other forms of Tumah. Beautiful. Since I will say we have the entire pasuk by Kohen Gadol properly accounted for. Incredible. So now says the Gemara, Ashkechon Kohen Gadol Nazir min Olam. So I will say, so now what we've effectively done is we've shown that a Kohen Gadol has the ability to become Tamei from Meis Mitzvah. But what about a Nazir? From where do I know that a Nazir has this license? The Sanya, the pasuk says, Kol Yimei Hiziro LaHashem Al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavo. Pasuk says, all the days that he is a Nazir to Hashem, he shall not come upon a nefesh meis. Right? Literally, again, nefesh meis, a dead person. So the Gemara, listen to this. Shomei ani afilu nefesh peima b'mashma. I would have maybe I will say maybe nefesh meis even includes what? Even includes dead animals. Kenyan shene'amar make nefesh behema. Because I say the Torah does use the lashon of nefesh by an animal as well. Talmud Lomar al nefesh meis lo yavo. Rabbi say this is fascinating. The pasuk doesn't just say he can't become tamei, rather it uses the lashon of yavo. Rabbi say, now remember again, lo yavo b'nefesh adam akasav medaber. We're davka talking about ultimately again the nefesh of a person. Now Rabbi say, how do you know ultimately again? How do you know that See, here's what's interesting. What the Gemara is dashing over here is, even though the word nefesh is used by animal, the phrase nefesh mace is only used by people. You never find that phrase nefesh mace ultimately used by people. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel says, Inu tzarech. So Rabbi Shmuel says, there's a different drasha. Harihu omer lo yavo. Rabbi say this is incredible. It says, the nefesh mace lo yavo. Rabbi say, now what does this mean? What does this mean? So what this means is as follows. Lo yavo. Remember again, the lashon of bia is also the lashon that is used by tumas ohel. Tumas ohel. So Rabbi say, now listen to this. It says, "Benefesh." So the lashon of the pasuk is, "Kol yimei ezyor laHashem al nefesh meis lo yavo." So remember again, from this pasuk I know that a Nazir can't become tamei. The havamin is maybe it applies also to dead animals, because a dead animal is also called the nefesh. So first answer is no. Nefesh meis, that phrase is only used by people. Rabbi Shmuel says there's another reason. Torah says lo yavo. B'nefashos hametamos bebia hakasav medaber. So Rabbi Shmuel says lo yavo is lashon of bia, lashon of coming, which refers to tumas ohel. The only type of tumah that a nazir is prohibited to become exposed to is the type of tumah which you could also contract via ohel. I will say, what's the only type of tumah you could contract via ohel? A person, a human being, not behema. Not behema. Beautiful. So the Gemara says, fine. So I'll say, so that's all called nafshos meis lo yavo. Fine. What about the Gemara says, good. Furthermore, again, the pasuk says, for his mother and his father. So I'll say, so once again, we're kind of left with this interesting idea, because same thing like we found by Kohen Gadol. Torah gives a general prohibition. Kol yimei ezyor laHashem al nefesh meis lo yavo. Fine. That's it. But the pasuk then goes on to say, la'aviv uli'imo, la'achiv ula'achoso, lo yitama. But then it says he also shouldn't become tamei for his father, for his mother, for his brother, for his sister. So why do they need to articulate all of these things? So watch this. La'aviv uli'imo in matame, ava matame u'lemeis mitzvah. So we'll say here we darshan. So la'aviv uli'imo, so it means what? You can't become, a nazir is not permitted even to become tamei for his immediate relatives. But who can he become tamei for? A meis mitzvah. A meis mitzvah. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Ad shelo yomar yeshli bedin. The truth is, even without saying this, I could extrapolate this, says the Gemara, through a kavachomer. What's the kavachomer? Uma kohen gadol shekedushas kedushas olam metame lemeis mitzvah. It will say, if a kohen gadol whose kedusha is eternal. Others will say, once you become the kohen gadol, in other words, what it's saying is, kohen gadol is a position for life. Now the truth is, we know that there are examples, we saw in yesterday's daf, right, of a kohen gadol who resigns, kohen gadol sha'avar. What it's saying is the nature of the kedusha of the kohen gadol is an ongoing, sustained kedusha. So when it comes to kedusha of a kohen gadol, which is ongoing and sustained, yet what? Metame lemeis mitzvah. Yet he can become tamei for a meis mitzvah. Nazir she'ein kedushas kedushas olam. A nazir whose kedusha is not an eternal kedusha. Eino din shemetame lemeis mitzvah. We'll say so again. So certainly, if a kohen gadol who has eternal kedusha has the ability to become tamei for a meis mitzvah, a nazir who does not have eternal kedusha certainly should become tamei for a meis mitzvah. We'll say first wide line. It's not a good kavachomer. I'll tell you why. Lo imamre kohen gadol shekin mevi carbon al tumaso. Tomar ben Nazir shemei. I'm sorry. Imamre kohen gadol shekin eno mevi carbon al tumaso. Tomar ben Nazir shekem maybe carbon al tomaso. So we'll say, so 1 second. So the Gemara says, but we're saying it's not a good comparison. A kohen gadol, when he becomes tamei, does not have to bring a carbon for his tuma. A nazir, when he becomes tamei, does have to be bringing a carbon for his tuma, which I will say seems to indicate that what? That a nazir becoming tamei is more severe than a kohen gadol becoming tamei. So therefore, again, maybe lo yitama lemeis mitzvah. Maybe therefore, maybe a nazir should not become tamei for a meis mitzvah. Tamid lomar lo aviv uli imo lo yitama ava metame lemeis mitzvah. So therefore, I do need the pasuk. The pasuk comes to say lo aviv uli imo. It's dafka for his immediate relatives that the nazir does not become tamei. But who does he become tamei for? He becomes tamei for a meis mitzvah. So therefore, the way this is going right now is I have a general pasuk. Kol Yemei Heziro LaHashem Al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavo. That's the general restriction that a Nazir has to become Tameh. Then the pasuk says LaAviv U'Limo for his mother and father. From that we darshan it's immediate relatives that he's not permitted to become Tameh for. But who can he become Tameh for? Meis Mitzvah. Meis Mitzvah. To which the Gemara says, 1 second. So the Gemara say, now the Gemara throws out an interesting idea. Well, maybe the pasuk is coming to say like this. Maybe the Nazir is only not permitted to become Tameh for his mother and father, but he can become Tameh for other Mesim. To which the Gemara says that doesn't make sense. Amrit Kavachomer, I can say Kavachomer, it's Kavachomer. Uma Kohen Hedyot, Shemet Tameh Lekrovov, Einu Tameh L'Shar Mesim. Rabbi say a regular Kohen who what? Is allowed to become Tameh for his immediate relatives, yet what? Is not permitted to become Tameh for what we'll call for Rechokim, for non-relatives. Nazir Shemet Tameh Lekrovov. So Krovin, a Nazir is not permitted to become Tameh for his immediate relatives. Eino din shaloi tameh l'shar mesim, certainly cannot become tameh for other mesim. Amud beis ha ma tameh lomar la'aviv u'li'imo. So it says the Gemara. So what are we to extrapolate from the phrase la'aviv u'li'imo? Dafka la'aviv u'li'imo hu d'lo metameh aval metameh hu l'meis mitzvah. So we'll say once again we come full circle back to the same drasha. Aviv Imo teaches me that a Nazir is not permitted to become Tameh for immediate relatives, but he is permitted to become Tameh for a Meis Mitzvah. And by the way, when we say, I just want to point out, when we say permitted to become Tameh for a Meis Mitzvah, what does that ultimately mean? Obligated. Obligated, because the whole chap of a Meis Mitzvah is, there is no one else. So the Gemara goes weiter. Okay, says the Gemara. Ad Sigmar, fine. We'll say Mem Chesma Beis 48b, 3 lines down. Ad Shelo Yomar Yeshli Bedin. So we'll say so Ad Shelo Yomar Yeshli Bedin. So the Gemara says even before getting into any Kavachomer, let's talk about the following. Ne'emar, listen to this. Nemru Klolos Bekoin Gadol, the Nemru Klolos Benazir. Now we'll say now listen to this. Both by Nazir and by Kohen Gadol, the Torah makes a general statement. A general statement. For example, ultimately, again, by Kohen Gadol, the pasuk says, "Lenefesh lo yitama," and by Nazir it says, "Al nefesh meis lo yavo." So we'll say, so that's what it means when it says klalos. The Torah makes a general statement prohibiting both the Nazir and the Kohen Gadol from becoming tamei meis. Okay, general statement. So watch this. Ma klalos hamuros bekohen gadol. Just like the general statement by Kohen Gadol, lo aviv einu metame aval metame lemeis mitzvah. So I'll say we know that the general statement by the Kohen Gadol teaches me. By Kohen Gadol, it means literally he cannot become tamei to anyone, right? When the pasuk says lenefesh lo yitama by the Kohen Gadol, I'll say who does that include? Everyone. So aval metame lemeis mitzvah, but a Kohen Gadol can become tamei for a meis mitzvah. Af klalos ha'amuros benazir. So it's Rabbi said the general statement by Nazir. Al nefesh meis lo yavo. What does that come to include? La'aviv eino matame. It comes to include even relatives he can't become tamei for. Aval matame lemeis mitzvah. But he should be able to become tamei for a meis mitzvah. So we'll say, so now this is a different type, almost like of a gzir shava, kal v'chomer, right? It says a general statement by Kohen Gadol, and that general statement includes all relatives, but excludes meis mitzvah. So too, there's a general statement by Nazir. It should include all relatives, but what? Exclude meis mitzvah. Okay, lechal derech zu. Or Rabbi say the truth is you can go in a different direction. What's a different direction? Watch this. Ne'emar klalos bekohen hedyot. So I'll say, there's also a general statement of lenefesh lo yitama by regular Kohen. Ve'ne'emar klalos benazir. And ultimately, again, there's a general statement by Nazir. Ve'al nefesh meis lo yavo. Now watch this. This is incredible. Ma klalos ha'amuros bekohen hedyot metame la'aviv af klalos ha'amuros benazir metame la'aviv. Wow. They will say, listen to this. In other words, there's a general statement by Kohen Hedyot of Tumah, and there's a general statement by Nazir. Maybe we should say that just like the general statement by Kohen Hedyot says that Kohen Hedyot can't become Tameh for Rechokim, but he can become Tameh for Krovim, so to a Nazir cannot become Tameh for Rechokim, but can become Tameh for Krovim. Talmud Lomar, Lo Aviv, Ule Imo, Lo Yitama, Halames Mitzvah Metame. So we'll say, to which the Gemara says, no. But by Nazir, the Torah goes out of its way to say what? Lo Aviv, Ule Imo. Right? It Dafka says for his mother and his father. So what do you see from here? If a Nazir is enjoined, a Nazir is prohibited to become Tameh to his parents or to his immediate relatives. But for a mitzvah, ultimately again, he is permitted to become Tameh. To which the Gemara says, 1 second. Aviv imo, I need that for a different drasha. Hami baile lomar shemetame la'aviv. So shemetame la'aviv. I will say, so remember again, no. I need, in other words, aviv and imo by Nazir. Don't teach him a mitzvah, will say. So aviv and imo by Nazir, or at least aviv by Nazir, teaches me that a Nazir cannot become Tameh for his immediate relatives. Ela la'aviv, rather we'll also watch this. Ela la'aviv, lomar shemetame la'aviv. To which the Gemara says, listen to this. So Aviv teaches me that the Nazir cannot become Tameh for his father, right? So I will say, so again, I have a general statement that a Nazir cannot become Tameh. That's what I have, right? Then, remember the Torah goes into specific relatives. Aviv teaches me that for immediate relatives, a Nazir can become Tameh, but who can he become Tameh for, right? Meis mitzvah. Watch this. La'achiv eino metameh. I'm sorry, take that back. La'aviv teaches me that what? He can't become Tameh for immediate relatives. That's what it teaches me. La'achiv, what does La'achiv teaches me? Eino metameh, halames mitzvah metameh. Right? So we'll say, Achiv, so watch this, right? Because Lashon of the Pasuk was, La'aviv u'li'imo, La'achiv u'la'achoso. So Aviv teaches us that a Nazir cannot become Tameh even for immediate relatives. Achiv teaches me that for immediate relatives he can't become Tameh, but what? For a meis mitzvah he can. What about imo? Uli imo l'gzera shava de Rebbe. I will say ultimately again, imo is the gzera shava of Rebbe. What was the gzera shava of Rebbe? That it's only tumas meis that a Nazir is not permitted to become exposed to through his relatives, but he is permitted to come in contact with them if they are what? If they have other forms of tumah. i.e. saras or zivos. So I will say, so now let's just pause here for just a moment because it's absolutely incredible. So I will say, so now watch what we have. We now have almost the entire pasuk by Nazir, right? So remember again, I have the general statement, Kol Yemei Zira LaHashem Al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavo, that teaches me that Nazir is not permitted to come in contact with the dead. Fine, that's number one. Then I both say I have a follow-up pasuk. What's the follow-up pasuk? La'aviv u'li'imo, la'achiv u'la'achoso lo yitama. Aviv teaches me that what? He can't come in contact with the dead, even immediate relatives. Achiv comes to teach his only immediate relatives that he can't come in contact with. But who can he come in contact with? Meis mitzvah. Imo, we use for the gezerah shava of Rebbe. That when we talk about it's prohibited to become in contact with Tameh relatives, that's only tumas meis, does not preclude him from coming in contact with those relatives. If what? If it's other forms of tumah. We'll say one missing. Who's missing? Achoso. Watch this. This is incredible. Ula achoso. So we'll say, what do I do with achoso? Look at the sanya. Listen to this. The sanya. Lachos matamlar. We'll say, what do I learn from achoso? Bless you. It's incredible. Hare shahalach lishchot es pischo. V'lamo lespino. So I will say, I just want to point out over here, the Rush points out, this is a regular guy. The Rush says, Hare Shahaya Holech Yisrael Ve'eno Nazir. This is talking about a regular guy. He is not a Nazir, he is not a Kohen Hedyot, he's not a Kohen Gadol, he's just a guy. And what's happening? I will say, this guy is going on his way to Shechtis Karban Pesach, V'lamo Laspino, or to circumcise his son. V'shama Shemeis Lo Meis. And I heard that one of his relatives died, so Yachol Yitame. You might have thought that he should go to the Levi and become Tameh. So the Gemara says, Amrit Lo Yitama. The pasuk says he should not become Tameh. So we'll say, so now let's just analyze what's happening over here. So we'll say, so if you can imagine, there's a guy. He's on his way to do the Karban Pesach, right? And what is he here? Or for that matter, again, give his son a bris. I will say, so then what happens? He hears that his sister died. One of his relatives died. And I will say, we are presupposing that this is a case where there is someone else who is able to take care of the burial. So right? Because if there's no one to take care of the burial, then what is that? Meis mitzvah. In other words, you could also have a relative who's a meis mitzvah, right? Technically speaking. So I will say, so now we'll call him Ruvain. Ruvain's on his way to do his Karban Pesach. He hears that his sister passed away, or any relative for that matter. So he has a choice. What's his choice? His choice is go to the Levaya. Well, if he goes to the Levaya, what's the halacha? Can't do Karban Pesach. Right? Why can't do Karban Pesach? Because he'll be tamei. Or the situation may be that he may not be able to give his son a bris, ultimately again because of tumah considerations as well. So I will say what the Gemara is saying is like this: Ulachoso means sometimes yachol yitama. You might have thought your obligation is to go back and go to the levaya. Amrit lo yitama. I will say there are certain times. Now I want to point out over here. So, but the common denominator between bris milah and Karban Pesach is they both carry with them penalties of kares, right, for non-performance. So I will say you might have thought that you should go to the levaya instead of doing Karban Pesach. Therefore, the pasuk says lo yitama. No, go do Karban Pesach and ultimately again go give bris milah. So it says the Gemara. Now we're going to clarify this in just a moment. So the Gemara says. Yachol lo yitama lemeis mitzvah. You might have thought this would even apply to a meis mitzvah. So therefore the pasuk lachoso de'ina metame ha meta. So the Gemara says de'ina metame ha lemeis mitzvah metame. But for a meis mitzvah, ultimately again, I will say one would be metame themselves. So I will say this is a really dramatic drasha. So I will say I just want to point out what the Gemara is using this drasha of lachoso. La'achoso is not unique to the Nazir and not unique to the Kohen, right? La'achoso, the drasha is being made over here is for a regular guy, say who has to make a shikul, who has to do a cost-benefit analysis. Two opportunities in front of me right now, right in front of this guy, Ruvain. His sister died, a relative died, so he can go to the levaya, become tamei, now, right? And that's obviously one option, or continue on and do Karban Pesach or bris milah for his son. Achoso teaches me he should continue on, do Karban Pesach, do bris milah, and not lose out on those opportunities because of tumah. Now, I will say once again, this presupposes that what? That there are other people to take care of the mace. Now, I will say you might have thought that the same shikol, the same cost-benefit analysis applies to a mace mitzvah. Kamash Mlo, no. Stafka lachoso. Lachoso is an example of someone who has someone else to take care of their burial needs. But for a meis mitzvah, you always drop everything, including bris milah, including Karban Pesach, and take care of the needs of the mace. They will say there is a tremendous musar haskell in this particular idea, this lachoso. Shayaholech lishchot es pischo b'shama shemes lo meis. They will say it's an incredible paradigm for life. You see, people like to think in life you could have your cake and eat it too. It's false. It's false. Life is filled with decisions. And by definition, whenever you choose A, you cannot have B. It's just like, again, you eat fleischiks for dinner, you're not having ice cream for dessert. It's just the way that life works. So there are people, I will say, there are people who like to always keep themselves pariv, right? Like literally pariv, right? Because you never know, like what's going to happen. There's fleischiks, milchiks. I will say, you know what happens with pariv people? Right? Pariv people lead pariv lives. First of all, they're never full, they're never satiated, right? Because they're always trying to figure out, what am I going to eat next? And they never really move forward in life. We'll say in life, you have to make decisions. And understand when you make decisions, you are going to give something up. That's the reality. To live a life and think that you're going to have your cake and eat it too, it's delusional. It's delusional. You're going to choose Karban Pesach, you're going to lose out on the Levaya. You're going to take Meis Mitzvah, you're going to lose out on Karban Pesach. Such is the nature of life, which I both say is what reminds us of how we have to be so careful in our processes for decision making. Because whenever you choose A, you are sacrificing B. So therefore, again, I will say, Gemara is sensitizing us. Be careful with what you choose. Be careful with what you choose, because every decision, by definition, comes with a sacrifice. So be careful what you're taking, and be careful what you're giving up. Such an incredible Quran Yisod. So let's go back there. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Akiva says, Nafshos Elu harechokin. Right? So Rabbi Akiva says nafshos, who are nafshos, that refers ultimately, again, I will say, to people who are unrelated. So the Gemara says mace, elu hakrovim. That refers to people who are related. Right? So Rabbi Akiva is dashing the pasuk a little bit differently. Right? The pasuk of Akol nafshos mace, Akol naf. Kol yemei zero la Hashem al nefesh meis lo yavo. So we'll say by the Nazir. So Rabbi Akiva is actually a little bit different. Rabbi Akiva says nafshos. That refers ultimately again to unrelated people. Meis refers to even related people. Lo aviv uli imo. I by Nazir, when it says father and mother, enu matame. Tafka for his father and mother doesn't become tame. Aval matame hu la meis mitzvah. But he does become tame ultimately again for a meis mitzvah. Lo achiv. Both say, what does achiv mean? Shem haya kohen gadol v'hu nazir. Now, both say this is very interesting. Rabbi Akiva has a different drush over here. Rabbi Akiva says, if he was a kohen gadol and he was a nazir. So we'll say, now watch this. Now this guy has got both items going on over here, right? He is both a kohen gadol as well as a nazir. Shem haya kohen gadol v'nazir. Actually, both say, what we're going to do? We're gonna. Okay, fine. Shem haya kohen gadol v'hu nazir. If he was both a kohen gadol and a nazir. Ultimately, again, he does not become tameh for his brother, but he does become tameh for a meis mitzvah. So we'll say the chiddush of Rabbi Akiva, we'll say, is that even what? Even in the case of a kohen gadol who's a nazir, right? So we'll say, by the way, we're going to talk about that case because it's actually an interesting case because one of the halachos of a kahuna gidola, kohen gadol, is he has to get his hair cut on a very frequent basis. We're going to talk about this. So how exactly you would have a case of a kohen gadol nazir we'll talk about, but let's just take it for granted that can happen. So Rabbi Akiva is coming along and saying, even this guy kohen gadol nazir who has shtei kedushos, ultimately again, two levels of sanctity. Ultimately again, he also can become tamei for a meis mitzvah. Ula achoso. So we'll say, what does Rabbi Akiva do? Achoso. Kidisanya hare shahala shahai ayaholich lishchot es pischa v'lamal espino. So we'll say Rabbi Akiva will use lachoso for the same drasha we had before. I Rabbi Akiva gzer shava de Rabbi minale. Rabbi say, where does Rabbi Akiva learn out the gzer shava of Rabbi? Rabbi remember again, what's the gzer shava of Rabbi? Imo. That's the gzer shava that teaches us that a kohen gadol as well as a nazir are only prohibited from going ahead and becoming exposed to tumas meis from relatives, but not other forms of tumah. So where does he know that from? To which the Gemara says, Amar l'chakivan de Amar Mar im haya kohen gadol v'nazir le'echav v'nazir la'achiv eino matame aval matame hu l'meis mitzvah. So we'll say, actually, you know what? We'll stop over here for today. Let's stop over here with this last piece. So we'll say, I just want to point out to you, just because I want to sum it up, and then we'll do a little shara bitachon. So we'll say, I just want to show you, sometimes you have these Gemaras, and the beauty of these Gemaras, which I'll say is the exact interplay. I'll say, what's the goal of Torah Shabbat Peh? What's the goal of Torah Shabbat Peh? The goal of Torah Shabbat Peh is to allow you to go ahead and understand Torah Shebichsav. And I will say, every once in a while, this happens in such a beautiful way. So now I will say, watch what we have. We now have two perfect drashas of psukim, right? So I will say, so by the Kohen Gadol, the Torah says, "V'akol nafshos meis lo yavo." So we'll say that's the klalos, that's the general statement. La'aviv uli imo lo yitama. So we'll say, so ultimately, again, what do I learn from Aviv? Aviv teaches me that it's dafka what? Dafka relatives a kohen gadol cannot become tamei for, but what? A meis mitzvah he can. And imo teaches me ultimately the gzer shava of Rebbe, that it's only tumas meis that he can't allow himself to be exposed to, but if his relatives have other forms of tumah, he could allow himself to be exposed to that. That's kohen gadol. What about by Nazir, Abosai? So by Nazir, kol yemei zero la Hashem al nefesh meis lo yavo. That's the klalos, the general statement. Then la'aviv. So I'll say, what does la'aviv teach me? For immediate relatives, he cannot become tamei. I'm going to go out of order like the Gemara did. Achiv teaches me that what? That even that for immediate relatives he can't become tamei, but what? For meis mitzvah he can. Imo uses the gzera shava of Rebbe, and achoso teaches me the halacha that's not unique to Nazir kohen gadol. What does achoso teach me? that if a guy is on his way to do Karban Pesach or to give a bris milah to his son, and he heard that his relative passed away, you would have thought that he should go to the Levi and become Tameh. Kamashmal on what? Kamashmal on no. Right? Cost-benefit analysis, do the Karban Pesach, go ahead and do the bris milah, but that's only assuming what? There's someone else to bury. If it's a meis mitzvah, then what? Then halacha l'maisa, you have to become tamei and allow yourself to do it. So therefore, I both say, this is all beautiful, all tidied up, all buttoned up. One last remaining piece, which is where Rabbi Akiva learns out the Gzeira Shava of Rebbe from. So I both say, Emirat Hashem, that's the last piece. We'll Emirat Hashem see in tomorrow's daf. We'll say, we'll stop over with the daf. Let's just do a little bit of Shara B'tachon. A little bit, ultimately, again, of Musar. Chevra, I ended a few minutes early. So even if you don't normally stay for Shara B'tachon, stay for Shara B'tachon and promise it's not going to hurt. And it doesn't ask you to do anything you don't already want to do. I'll say, so again, let's go a little bit weiter. All right, Shabbos says, so the Mechaber is continuing over here. See, Steve knows that he can't leave. Right, that's it. Steve knows he can't go anywhere. He can't go anywhere. Poor guy. By the way, the Sfarim are available. The Hebrew ones are free. The Art Scroll ones, they didn't have a sponsor for this time. So those they're $10, which I think is still, right, Alan, it's under market, right? It's under market. Yeah, it is under market. But again, the Hebrew ones are free. So I'll say suggest, and actually it happens to be the Hebrew ones. I would tell you, even if you purchase the Art Scroll, it's still kedai to take the Hebrew one also, because there's a beautiful parish inside of it. It's really really excellent, a really excellent parish. And it's free. So, you know. All right, so I'll say, so let's continue. So we are picking up today. You have Haravi. So I will say it is page 13. Page 13. Page 13 in the Hebrew edition. And there are more art scrolls, by the way, if we run out over here. So I will say, so again, Pigot Revi. So if you remember again, thank you, Said. If you remember again, the Mechaber, obviously we're talking about over here the power of bitachon, the power of belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? And why, although often it's tempting in life to put your faith in other things, those other things in life do not provide a real sense of security, often because they are fleeting and they do not endure. Now, I will say, if you remember again, the way the Mechaber ended off was he said that when a person has bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they have as much bitachon as an alchemist. Now, I will say, now, it's a strange thing. Now, again, just so you understand the context, in the times of the Shara B'tachon, right, times of Rabbeinu Bechaye, right, times of the author of the Chovas HaLevavos, so an alchemist was someone who had excellent parnasa, right? It was like doctors before HMOs, right? In other words, right? So right? So you had guaranteed parnasa. Meaning what I'm saying? Because the alchemist, right? Now remember, I just want to point out, the alchemist is a fraud, right? I just want to be clear. The guy's a crook, right? How does he make his parnasa? He goes ahead and he takes simple metal and makes it look like precious metals. But sometimes crime pays, and sometimes crime pays very well. So the alchemist was the type of parnasa. No one really knew the ruse, right? And so he used to make a lot of money. So what the Shara B'tachon said, what the Mechaber said was, one who has bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's as assured of parnasa like the alchemist. And after he says it, he says, but I want to show you 10 ways in which bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu is even better than the bitachon an alchemist has. So we've already done 3 of them. Number 4, Varavi, Kibala Kimia, Eno Nimlat Mehazmin Me'azav Va'kesef Harbe Le'isarcho. So here's the issue. In order to practice alchemy, what do you need? You need materials. So I will say, so when you're an alchemist, you have to make like a shikul, like there's a decision you have to make. Either you have to go ahead and pre-order a lot of the materials ahead of time so that you'll have them when you need them, or you have a choice, you could only purchase them when you need them. Now there's a downside to both. So if you pre-order, right, if you buy up a lot of materials in advance, I will say, what's the concern? if you buy up a lot of merchandise, right? You pre-order a lot of merchandise. So we'll say, what's the fear? What's the fear? You could lose it, right? There's a fire in the warehouse. There's a this, there's that. So in other words, when you have all of this merchandise, it's kind of sitting on your head. Is it going to last? Am I going to be able to retain it? So all the time that I haven't used up the merchandise, I have to worry about losing it. On the flip side, furthermore, again, what's the other verse? See, remember, I was saying, like I said before, the alchemist is a crook. So everything he does, he has to do very quietly, right, underneath the radar. So the problem just is, if he has a lot of material, so a lot of merchandise, what does a lot of merchandise do? It attracts attention. So he has a double worry. Number one, the large stock of merchandise may attract attention from the king and from other people. And number two, something may happen to the merchandise before I've used it. So because of that, he's always in a state, he has no menuchas hanefesh. He has no inner quietude. He's in a little bit of like a panic state about what's going to happen to his merchandise. He says, on the other hand, on the flip side, if he only orders material as needed, such like an Amazon generation. If he only purchases, right? If he only purchases materials as needed, then what? What could happen? Supply chain issues, right? What could happen? Right. Prime may not be available for the particular item that he is ordering. So I must say, so this is the problem that he runs into, right? So in other words, if you pre-buy a lot of material, you run the risk of catching the attention of the authorities, right? And you also run the risk of loss of materials, just loss. If you only order materials or only purchase as needed, you run the risk that what you may need or what you will need may not be available at the time that you need it. Conversely, Vaboteach Belokim, page 14 about in the Hebrew. Right now, for today, we're actually just going in the bold print. There are going to be certain days where we're going to go along in the Perush, but for today, we're going to go in the bold print. Vaboteach Belokim, conversely, one who has faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bitchono Chazak Belokav, strong faith in Hashem, Shiyatriv Osaf Kirtzona Be'esh Shiyirtze Makom Shiyirtze. See, I say, the great part about the Ribono Shalom is he never has supply chain issues, right? There's never a problem about where to order from. Is there going to be enough when I need it? Never a problem. Kasher Rose, what's the raya to this? Kasher Yatrif Ha'uba Berechem Imo, V'Afrach Basoch HaBeitza. The same way that ultimately, again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was able to nourish the child in utero, or the chick when it's inside of the egg. Asher ein ba makom mafulash leikanes elav mimeno davar mechutza. Rabbi say, for the child in utero or for the chick in the eggshell, in the egg, there's no way to get things into that baby, or no way to get things in ultimately to the chick. Yet, Kadosh Baruch Hu takes care of it. Va'of ba'avir, or for the bird in the sky. Va'dagim b'mayim, the fish in the sea. Va'lamala hakitanim im chalishusa, or the smallest, weakest ant. The batzer hateref me'arim takval b'ktas yomim. And sometimes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide for the weakest of creatures, and sometimes withhold food from the lion, the mightiest of creatures. Shemosha Kasov, Kfirim Rasha V'Ra'evu, V'Darshi Hashem Le'achsru Kol Tov. Literally, again, the lion cub makes a lot of noise, but yet still goes hungry. But those who seek out Hashem will never lack for anything. V'amar lo yariv Hashem nefesh tzadik. V'amar nar hayisi v'gam zakanti v'lo ra'isi tzadik nezav v'zaro mevakesh lochem. So Rabbi say this is incredible. So this is distinction number 4. So distinction number 4 is the alchemist, right? The alchemist, he doesn't know what to do. Do I pre-order and run the risk of having a massive storehouse catching the attention of the authorities, loss of inventory, or do I order as needed and worry about what? Worry about not being able to obtain what I need when I need it. But yet, when one puts their bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbi say, the one thing I know is that whenever I need it, Hashem could provide it. This is incredible. Whenever I need it, Hashem can provide it. There's no supply chain issues. There's no delays. There's no storehouses. I mean, there are storehouses, so celestial storehouses. But whenever I need it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the ability to provide it. Number 5, Chamishi. We'll say one more for today. Chamishi, the 5th reason why bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu is even better than the alchemist. V'chamishi, shebala kimiyah tachasiro pachar amalachto min hagadol v'al HaKadosh sheba'am. As we said before, the alchemist is a crook. Is a crook. Shabbos say, as much as he makes a good parnasa, Lamaisa, he lives in constant fear. What does he live in constant fear of? Right? Of people. If anyone discovers what it is that he is doing, he runs the risk ultimately again of being sent to the authorities. So we'll say, and that's, by the way, he's in fear of everyone. In other words, it's not just the authorities of the king. If anyone discovers what it is that he's doing, they could turn him in. So we'll say, the alchemist is afraid of people. One who has bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ultimately again, will earn the respect of people. So you both say, no one respects the alchemist. Why? Why? Because he's a crook, he's a fraud. Yet one who has bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu earns the respect of others. Afachayos va'avanim mevakshim etzona. I will say even the animals have a respect of the one who has bitachon Hashem. Even the stones themselves, K'moshe Nemar b'mizmar Yoshe b'seiser elyon ad achariso v'omer b'sheish tsaros yatzilecha u'b'sheva lo yiga b'chara b'rav padcha mimaves ad sofim. He's quoting over here again. I will say rayos from Tehillim and from Eov. Of course, I will say the greatest raya of this, it was mentioned already in passing, was the idea when Yaakov Avinu has his dream. Right. So remember again, the pasuk says vayikach me'avnei hamakom. He took a stone. Right. Vayisem arashosam. He put it on his head. The Medrash quotes that what? That the Avonim were arguing with each other. Alai yaniach rosho shel tzaddik. Right? I want, right, the tzaddik should put his head on me. We'll say, what are they arguing about? What are they arguing about? Elam, I see, this is what the Mechaber is saying over here. When the person has bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the world wants to serve him. The world wants to honor him. Even the inanimate objects of the world, even the stones, ultimately, again, want to be able to give covet to the individual. So, we'll say, isn't this incredible? So the alchemist spends his life trying to hide from others. But yet ultimately, again, one who has bitachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu will ultimately earn the respect of others. And I will say, I'll stop over for today, but I just want to point out what a profound idea this is. I will say, so often in life, there are times where our religious beliefs sometimes conflict with career or sometimes conflict with things going on in the world. And often we feel like we have to be like apologetic, right? Try to bend over backwards so that our religious beliefs don't identify with anything else. And I will say, it's just the opposite. What the Mechaber is saying over here is, be a Bal B'tachon. We're Jewish. We have a Kadosh Baruch Hu, we have a Torah, we have a halacha. There's no need to be apologetic about it, right? There's no need to try to explain it away. And there's no need to go ahead and bend over backwards to make my Yiddishkeit accommodate everything that's going on around me. When a person is a Baal B'tachon and stands firm for what they believe in, right? And stands up for what they believe in and is unapologetic about our beliefs, our hashkafas and our halachas, something amazing happens, which is the world and the people around you begin to respect you even more. Conversely, be apologetic. Explain away, people don't see, let's say what people respect is a person of conviction. That's what the Mechaber is saying, a person of conviction, right? A person who's the machzis hashekel, who's eish, who's fire, who's passionate about something. Become passionate, become committed, become a person of convictions, and ultimately, again, both the human world and the inanimate world will respect you for it. We'll say, shkoyach. Probably